Hey kids, Pastor Chris here. Welcome to another episode of RMPC's Kids Questions. Today's going to be a little bit different. Today we're going to look at three shorter questions with shorter answers. So let's jump in. Our first question for this week says, how can God be everywhere at once? That's a great question because it's one of those things that's kind of hard for us to understand. But here are a couple of things that the Bible says to help us. First, God can be everywhere all at once because God is spirit. God doesn't have a body like we do. The reason that we can only be in one place at one time is because we're limited by the bodies we have. God is a spirit and he doesn't have a body. And so he's not physically limited to being in one place at one time. He can be everywhere. The Apostle Paul explains it in Ephesians 4 by saying that God is over all and in all and through all. God is over all. One of the pictures we get throughout the Bible is that of God sitting on his throne in heaven, looking down at the world he made. And God is so big that as he looks down at the world, he can see absolutely everything going on in it. That's a picture that the Bible paints to help us understand how God is over all. But God is also in all. He lives by his spirit in every single one of his people. In every single one of us, God lives by his spirit. And so God is in all and God is through all. God is all over the world. His spirit is all over the world. So he can be everywhere. He can see everything that's going on. He knows absolutely everything. And so that's how God can be everywhere all at once, because he's a spirit and he's not limited in a body like us. All right, our second question. Why do people die? That's another great question. That's one of the big problems that we face in life is death. Why does that happen? Well, death is the consequence of sin. Remember in Genesis 1, 2, and 3, when God created the world and he created Adam and Eve, he said you can live in this world and eat of any of the trees that I made for you to eat except one. Don't eat from this one tree, because if you do, that's going to be sin, and the consequence for that is death. But Adam and Eve chose to eat from that tree, and that's what brought death into the world. So Paul can say in Romans that the wages of sin is death. The consequence for sin is death. In Romans 5, he says that when Adam and Eve ate that fruit, death came into the world because death comes through sin. And so we die because we're all guilty of sin. And that's a problem that we will all face until Jesus comes back. Which brings us to our last question for this week, which is, when will Jesus come back? And that's a great question with a very simple answer. I don't know. Nobody knows. When the disciples asked Jesus, when are you coming back? He even said he didn't know. Only the Father knows when Jesus is going to come back. And so we don't know, but when Jesus comes back, it will be clear for all to see. Jesus says that just like when there's lightning in the sky and you look up and everybody around can see the lightning, that's what it's going to be like when he returns. Everybody's going to see it and everybody's going to know. So we don't know when it's coming, but we will know when it comes. I hope that these were helpful answers to all of you. That wraps up all of the questions that you sent to me to answer a number of months ago. So this has been really fun. I hope it's been helpful to you guys, and we'll see if we can get some more questions and keep answering some more of your questions. But until then, I hope you guys think about these questions and answers. Keep learning more about God by reading his word and praying, and keep growing in your faith, guys. I'll look forward to seeing you later.